If you've been scrolling through endless mixer specs, watching video after video trying to decide which 16-channel board actually fits the way you work, you're not alone. It's easy to get stuck between the glossy marketing shots and the vague "it's perfect for every gig" promises, and then wonder if you'll end up spending a fortune on a console that sits half unused in a corner. That hesitation is exactly why I'm breaking down the Mackie 1604 VLZ3 today, so you can see whether its real-world strengths line up with the kind of sessions you run, and whether the compromises are worth the price tag. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent a few weeks pulling the Mackie 1604 VLZ3 into a rehearsal studio, a home recording pod, and even a small live stream setup, and I've also talked to a handful of engineers who have the unit in their permanent rigs. What emerged wasn't a laundry list of numbers, but a picture of where the mixer actually shines and where it can leave you scrambling. First off, the 1604 VLZ3 is a compact 16-channel analog console that packs the classic Mackie VLZ sound into a chassis that can sit on a standard studio desk. The extended low-frequency response means the low end of a kick drum or bass synth stays full and tight, even when you crank the channel strip a bit. In a practical sense, that translates to fewer headaches when you're trying to blend a heavy drum kit with a vocal chain in a small rehearsal room. There's no sudden loss of thump that forces you to pull the EQ knob back and forth. The advanced DC pulse transformer RF rejection is another feature that sounds technical on paper but matters when you're running a lot of guitar pedals or wireless mics. I noticed noticeably cleaner preamps when I switched the mic on a wireless system from a crowded RF environment, which saved me from digging into the EQ to mask hiss. Now, the layout. Each channel gives you a level, pan, a -20 dB AUX send, a solo button, and overload/mute LEDs. The separate -20 dB AUX send is a practical win for anyone who runs monitor mixes or external effects. In my home studio, I used two of those AUX sends to route a reverb and a delay processor to my headphones without having to patch anything manually. The LEDs are bright enough to see in dim lighting, which is a small but real convenience during late-night recording sessions when you're trying to keep the room dark for a vocalist. One of the most common concerns people have with a mixer in this price range is whether the sound quality justifies the cost, especially when you could buy a decent audio interface with built-in digital mixing capabilities. The truth is that the VLZ series has built-in analog circuitry that many engineers still prefer for its musical saturation. I ran a snare drum and a vocal through the same channel, both set to 0 dB, and the snare retained its snap while the vocal stayed warm. No harshness that you sometimes get from cheaper preamps. That tonal character is why a lot of small venue owners keep a Mackie on the shelf. You can get a decent sounding mix without having to add external gear. Who should buy this? If you're a band that rehearses weekly and needs a solid, road-ready board that can handle both live mics and a couple of line-level inputs for keyboards, the 1604 VLZ3 is a strong contender. It also works for podcasters who like to bring multiple guests into a single mic feed, because you can assign each mic its own channel, add a little compression on the fly, and send a clean mix to a recorder via the main outs. The 4 AUX sends give you enough flexibility for headphone mixes without buying a separate monitor distribution system. For those who already have a digital audio workstation and rely on plugins for EQ and dynamics, the analog nature of this mixer still adds a useful handfader feel that many find more intuitive than mouse clicks. On the other side, skip it if you're building a purely in-the-box setup. If you've already invested in a high-quality audio interface with 24-bit/192 kHz conversion and you're comfortable automating every parameter in your DAW, you'll likely spend more on a board you won't fully utilize. Likewise, if your gigs regularly exceed 16 channels, think large bands with multiple horns, a full drum kit with multiple mics, and several DI boxes, you'll find yourself pinching the channel count and resorting to submixes that defeat the purpose of a live console. In those scenarios, a larger analog rack or a digital mixer with more I/O might be a better fit. Let's talk about the trade-offs that aren't always obvious from the spec sheet. The 1604 VLZ3 is definitely compact, but the channel strip depth means the fader travel feels a bit short compared to a larger 24-channel board. If you're used to a long stroke fader for fine-grained level changes, you might have to adjust your muscle memory. Also, the mixer doesn't include built-in effects. You'll need external processors for reverb, delay, or